And we welcome you back to the Vine Morning Show on this Monday morning, and we welcome those watching on our YouTube channel this morning and also on cable TV channel 15, as it's our weekly visit with our good friend Lora Greathouse. She's in with us on Monday. Good morning, Laura. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Mark. I'm very, very well.
All right. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Yes,
Where to
yes.
begin?
Well, I just have to begin at your good church that I got to visit yesterday.
Yeah, it was good to see you and Tom and Blaze and Lucy yesterday.
Yes. It was so nice, and we've been visiting different churches for some weeks now, and it's just amazing what things that you see at all these different churches,
It is. It really is.
It really is. And so we go to the House of Prayer with Mac and Jen Dalton, and it was a great experience.
Great.
It really was. We were a few minutes late, but, and it was an hour drive.
Sure.
Solid, if not more.
Right.
And so anyway, the Greathouse family did the best we could, but it was really nice. I just want to give a shout out to that church. If you are in that area and you're looking for a place to go, they treated us well. They were extremely friendly. The people that we sit by, Mark, they welcomed us, told us about the church. The lady, you said her name was Rhonda. Yes, I had forgotten. So many people told me their name.
Sure.
And they don't do that in church.
It's hard to remember everyone, especially whether you're new to the church or you're visiting.
Yes.
But after a while, you get to learn the names and everything, and it sticks with you. But yeah, it was great to see you guys yesterday.
Thanks. It was a great experience, and now you were down at Children's Church, right?
Yes, we were down with the Truth Seekers yesterday.
Okay. Well, let me tell you a few things that happened at your church.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you, it impressed me a lot. There was so much freedom.
Right.
There really was. And different times, Mac is up there. He's not a dictator. He is a very open, loving, kind person. He's approachable. And I liked how when he was up on stage and different things, people felt free to interject, if they had a testimony or if they had a thought. Or there was 2 different people I know that gave great testimonies, and he was okay with that. It was really, really good. And then another thing, this was funny, he was telling on himself and how he had some bitter feeling about somebody. He didn't even realize that he had it. And your sound people back in the back, whenever he was telling it, they played a trick on his voice and made it echo, echo, echo. And it was real dramatic, and it was hilarious. And you know what he said? He said, there's sometimes up here I wish I had an airsoft gun.
Yeah, because, see, they set up in a crow's nest in the back up high, so
right.
He'd have to be spot on to hit them up there.
It was so funny. I thought right in the middle of his sermon, he's wishing he had an airsoft gun to shoot his sound guys. It was great. But you know what? It didn't take away from the seriousness of his message.
Sure.
And I told him, I said, Mac, you couldn't have known, but you just gave me revelation after revelation. And I'm really glad that I came today. And then that afterwards, Max said, we were standing there talking with Mark and Sherry and Jen, and he says, I just really feel the prompting to pray for you. And so we all held hands, and you all prayed over the Greathouse family and for instruction and clarity and to know where to go and what to do. And that was needed. It was very necessary. And for you all to feel that need and just drop everything, and it was okay. And I'm sure you guys were ready to go or hungry or whatever, but it didn't feel like it mattered to anybody. First things first, and things of importance are taken over things that don't matter so much. And then your lovely wife gave us a great tour of the whole building, and she is so on fire. She's so happy to be there. And I'm thinking, wow, that's how we should be. We should be excited to go to the house we choose to go to on Sundays.
And I've said this, and we've talked about this many times, you and Tom and the kids are visiting churches, and you're looking for where God will place you.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with, you going and visiting churches, for anyone.
Right.
If you feel led by the Holy Spirit to visit a church, you better take that step, because that's God telling you something.
You're right.
Right there. And when you take that step and you find out this is where you're supposed to be, you are honoring God's will by doing that.
yes, absolutely. And just watching you and Sherry, that church, whenever you fit that puzzle to where God is leading you to, it breathes new life in you, and then you're able to breathe new life
That's
in
right.
other people.
I like that. You're exactly right. It's so true.
There's sometimes where we get stuck in a place because we feel obligated. We think we have to be there. We've always been there. Our family's always gone there. I was talking to one of my buddies the other day, and she said, yeah, we just recently moved to another town. And she said, I'm having to leave my church. It's 40 minutes away. And she said, I have young kids that'll be traveling on the road and new to driver's license, and that's just not going to work for us. But she said, it was so difficult because I've been to that church since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And she's 46, my age now. And sometimes, what is it we think we just need to keep on keeping on because we've always kept on and we don't want to break that tradition or something?
Yeah.
We need to let that go. Let God breathe in your life. Let Him work in your life. If you're supposed to stay there, stay. But if you really feel the leading to move on, don't be afraid.
That's right.
Don't be
That's
afraid.
right.
It has taken a certain amount of confidence to go visit these other churches. For me, it's no big deal. I'm the type that's never met a stranger.
Sure.
But now Lucy is having a little bit of trouble with it. Mom, can we go back to our old church? I miss our old church. I'm ready to go back to our old church. She doesn't quite have the confidence that is needed.
I can see that in Lucy. Yeah.
It does take a certain amount of confidence if you have a little bit of trouble meeting new people. But you know what, Mark, we've been to 5 or 6 churches now, and I have to tell you, people have rolled out the welcome wagon for us.
That's great.
And it's like churches are finally catching on that, hey, you got to make these people feel welcome.
You do. You have to. You have to take that extra step.
Yes.
Because that's how you're going to get people to come in.
Absolutely. And there are still some churches that don't have that welcome wagon. They're not very good at it. And it's not that they don't want the people there. They don't know. They're not very good at it.
Sure.
They're not very good at it. So have mercy. Let's do like Colossians says and bear with one another. And know that not every church is going to know how to exhibit that love and that care.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you what, the churches that I've been here lately, you get some gold stars from the Greathouse family, and your church we couldn't have asked for it to be any better. So, if you're from the Albion area or surrounding, House of Prayer gets 5 stars from the Greathouses. It really was good.
And you guys can always come back.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
anytime, too.
And I like how you guys were having, you were showing the Woodlawn movie.
Yeah, we had that last night. We had 150 people were there last night, from my understanding. Yeah, it was packed last night.
I think that's great. And how many churches have X'd off that Sunday night service, and then here you are. Do you have something special on a Sunday night occasionally, or do you always get together on Sunday nights?
They have youth group on Sunday
Youth
nights
group.
usually.
Okay,
They have
yes.
some youth group on Sunday
That's good.
nights. But last night was for the movie night. It was for the entire family.
Okay.
And they had popcorn and sodas and all that. And it was a lot of fun last night. And that was a great, of course, the Woodlawn was a great movie. All the great Christian movies. War Room was another great movie.
Yes, right.
But that's how you fellowship.
Yes.
That is so important to be able to keep that close knit of your church family together, is to fellowship like that and offer things like this for the congregation.
Yes, absolutely. And something I have to tell you, a brag that I heard on you yesterday, and I'm not sure you heard it, but whenever we were talking about how you and Sherry had joined the church, Mac looked right at me and he said, they've been more help than you know. You just can't imagine. Mark has been such support to me. And you came at such a timely time.
It was time. Mm-hmm.
It was time that maybe something about that move not only helped you and Sherry, but it's helped the preacher down.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and something else I want to brag about
Sure,
your church
go
about.
ahead.
There was a lady, a husband and a wife, new people to the church, only been going there a couple months, and she is having cancer surgery, the way I understood it, on Friday.
Okay.
And he called her to the front, and asked for the elders and different ones of the church, and they anointed her with oil and laid hands on her and prayed for her, and it was a moment. It really was. And that was very impressive for a couple reasons. First of all, we've lost that in the churches, and it clearly says in the Bible, anoint. If you are sick, is there any among you that are sick? Call together the elders of the church and anoint them with oil. That is very necessary to be doing that, and it builds faith, and it builds unity, as you say, is growing in your church. And also what I loved, they've only been going to that church 8 weeks, but they've pulled them in and made them part of that family when they're just new, 2 months.
Sure.
And I just thought that was very impressive, and how so many people, they weren't bashful, and they just came, and you could feel those prayers just going up. You could just feel them. You could almost see the prayers going up for this lady, the prayers of faith. Some of the words that Max said, he had the faith to believe victory for this woman. And he spoke a prophetic word, and he said, God's not done with you. This is not going to be the end of you. You're going to keep going. You're going to get through this. And he had the guts to speak a prophetic word over her life. It was moving. It really was. It was a powerful thing. And Mark, we're never going to have more courage than our leader. We're never going to have more faith than our leader. So it's very important that you find a preacher, that you find a church that has faith as strong and more than you, that it can rise you up to the challenge.
Exactly. And, and like you said, a lot of churches have fallen off that way.
Yeah.
And that is sad, but there are still churches that are still doing that today, and that says something about those churches, that they are doing what God wants them to do. And we just have to get more churches involved in doing that.
Yes,
that's what it's all about.
It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It sure is. Well, we were glad to have you yesterday. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for inviting me. I would have never thought about it if you hadn't even invited me. I wouldn't have thought, wouldn't have thought about it. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And that's all you have to do, no matter where you go to church, is just invite someone to come and visit, or invite someone to come and experience it, no matter where you go to church. If you're currently involved in a church, invite somebody.
Yes, absolutely.
No matter who that person is.
No.
And,
that's right.
and invite them, because you could be the moment that their life changes by coming to your service.
That's exactly right. And there were some life-changing moments in the one Sunday that I visited.
Sure,
really.
Sure. Great. All right. Well, that's great. What a way to start off this morning. What else? We've got a lot to talk about, right?
We do. You had some great headlines. I hope we can have time to get to that. I had some things. I got to listen to a couple really great speakers this weekend, and one of them was our very own Melissa Garrettson.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I'd like to share some of that with you.
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
Yeah, she was at, I think, Marion this past weekend.
Yes, she was.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
Well, we'll do that when we come back in the 9 o'clock hour, as Laura's with us here this morning on the Vine Morning Show, and we encourage you to stay tuned. And more to come. That was then. This is now. That is Josh Wilson here at Real Life Radio 105.5 and 90.9 The Vine. It's music and ministry that is safe for the entire family. It is 9:10, back at the Vine Morning Show on a Monday morning with our weekly Monday visitor. Laura is with us this morning. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Mark.
And you had a chance to go to a women's seminar, right, over the weekend?
I sure did.
Yeah, and Melissa was there.
Yes, Melissa. I keep kind of meeting up with her at some of these things. And you know what? She always delivers, and she has a spunk about her. And she's just so real. And she can deliver a message, and you get it. It's not over your head. It's just something just thrown right on your lap that you can use. And I love and she's so real. You know what she told us? I mean, this has been planned for weeks and months.
Sure.
They have it every year. And she said, I just couldn't come up with anything. She says, and the week's just flying by, and I got nothing. And she says, the night before, I'm like, Lord, I don't have anything, and you know I don't have anything. She says, but I'm just going to go to bed and believe. And she says, and at 4 o'clock, she said, I woke up with a word, ladies. And she said, so let me tell you, it was just 4 o'clock this morning, and it's a fresh word.
I think she gets up like every morning, like around 3 or so.
Okay, she probably does. I mean, and that's one thing that she said. She said that she noticed she said, I'm easily distracted. And she says, I know that my life is better when I give the first part to the Lord. And she said she made it a point. 5 to 7 is yours, Lord. 5 to 7 is yours in the morning. I thought, wow, that's really great. She says, but I have fought with this. And everybody laughed because when you can relate, you laugh,
sure,
you know.
Yeah.
And she said, sitting there trying to pray, and she says, I'm looking up at the ceiling, and she said, oh, I can see that light. It's got a lot of bugs in it. And she's, really, okay, I'm praying a little bit more. And she goes, oh, and there's a cobweb over there. I got to remember to get that cobweb. And it's like, oh, my goodness, we all just bellowed because it's so true.
Sure, that's right.
I'm distracted easily. I really am. I can flip-flop to one thing to the next and spin a bunch of plates at the same time. And it's hard for me to sit still. It really is. But it's almost like a muscle too, Mark. If you just keep working it, we know that it works. And just like War Room, I keep reflecting back to this movie. That lady said, 10 minutes seemed like an eternity, but after I built this relationship with the Lord, and after I built this time with the Lord, then it's like you never wanted to come out of the War Room because it was such an effective time. And so anyway, Melissa told us not to leave the room and tell this, so I couldn't wait to get to the microphone today to tell it on her.
Oh, boy.
She was talking about the little donkey that the Lord rode.
Oh,
remember?
Yeah, yes.
The colt that no one had ever ridden before. And she said, he was just an ordinary donkey, but then that day he got to give the Lord a ride. And what that little donkey's eyes must have seen. And she called him Honky Donkey.
Honky Donkey. I've heard this story.
Have you heard this story before?
It's a good one.
Okay, all right. And I'm not sure I remembered everything that maybe you remember from it, but that's what stuck to me is Honky Donkey. And he was such a very special donkey, but he hadn't done anything special before. But that day was a changing day in his life where he got to do something, Mark, that no other donkey got to do. He got to be when Jesus was on that arrival. He was at that moment, and it was a changing day in world history. And Honky Donkey got to be the one. And we can apply that to ourselves. We may feel like our life has never been anything really special, that we've never really got to do anything great for the Lord, but we've got to remember what a difference a day can make. We don't know if today could be a very special day, a moment in history where we get to lead somebody to the Lord, where we get to help somebody make heaven as their home. Isn't that and the world would look like, that's not a big deal. One person. That's a huge deal. That action creates the angels in heaven to rejoice. Thousands of them. That's a big deal that we can't see with our earthly eyes. But in heaven, heaven is awakening and rejoicing over that one act. We don't know that we're not going to make a difference in all the lives around us today with something that we could do. Kim Davis, I'll use her as an example. She was just an ordinary woman in Kentucky, wasn't it?
In Kentucky, yeah.
Just working at the courthouse. Nobody knew her, really. Just very plain. And then one day, she stood and she dramatically changed our world. Did she not?
Yeah, she did.
I mean, that news went around the world that this lady was not willing to compromise her God-given beliefs. And that little ordinary woman with that long straight hair and her long dresses changed the absolute world. And I love it. No offense, but I love it. It wasn't some very wealthy, powerful man,
Well, and the first thing is, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And the first thing, when all this transpired with her past was brought up.
You're right.
You're right. And what are we told to do when we're new in Christ? That past is behind you.
That's right. Oh, I love that, Mark. I'm so glad that you thought to say that. And it's so true. She had some marriages or whatever in the past, and she was a new Christian on her own account. Had she been in church 4 years?
I believe that's right.
It was just very few, and I'm thinking, wow, Mark, I've been in church my whole life. my whole life. And that lady has only been in church 4 years, and she took such a stand that it went worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And who knew in that little moment of time in her life that she would have changed the world? She gave people courage,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
People that never had courage before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like people that she had never met before. They were contacting her. Yeah, was she getting heat from people? Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
But there were more people on her side than was given credit.
Yes,
When you
absolutely.
stop and you stop and you look at the bigger picture here.
You're right. And I'm so proud of Mike Huckabee that came to support her. Called her, I think he came.
He came. He went there.
To her, yes.
Yeah,
and
he came to her.
Good for, you know what? I bet that meant the world to her.
Oh, absolutely. It gave her new courage.
Absolutely.
You know, you couldn't imagine what she was going through at that time. Persecution.
Yes.
You know, not only being persecuted, but also having support.
Yes.
But more persecution being
Right.
reported than the
Yes.
support.
And threats.
Mm-hmm.
She had threats. She was combating. And at one time, I think I remember seeing a news thing where she had a fever blister. You know, that shows great stress that a person is going out
Sure.
and going through when they have a fever blister on their...
Admit it or don't want to admit it.
Right.
But if you really stop and you think about it, out nationwide April 1st, but people can come to Vie Night at the movies on March 31st. And, you know, I'm seeing more and more a lot of these Christian movies. Risen is out now.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I'm seeing a lot of these Christian movies are bringing more and more people to the theaters,
Yes.
to churches, to private showings and stuff. And that is saying something about that we are on the track to win souls for Christ. And what a better way to do it than these movies.
You are so right, and I'm so glad you said all that because, you know, Mark, I'm thinking, okay, is it just me? But does it seem like the closer we get to the end of time, the more tribulations, apocalypse, the life of Jesus is hitting the movie screens?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just unbelievable. So I got to looking, you know, the web is in a lot of ways such a wonderful tool, and I got to thinking, well, okay, wonder when this really started to take a leap. And per the site that I found, there's been lots of movies throughout time.
Sure.
We know that.
Sure.
But 1999 seemed to be a turning point.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I was looking at the years before, you know, a few movies here, a few movies there. But whenever I popped to 1999, it seemed like it really ramped. Like 1998, they've showed 3 movies on the site that I'm on. And then 1999, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A movie on Esther, Mary the Mother of Jesus, Apocalypse 2, Revelation. 1999 really seemed to be like a turning point. And then you get to 2000 and you've got Left Behind movie and different ones. It's Apocalypse 3 and then it just starts really bulking up and you just got all these movies just like crazy. And then we're looking at 2016 and look at all the good ones.
Well, look at Fireproof, look at
Yes,
Courageous, look
right.
at Facing the Giants, Flywheel, all
Yes,
those movies. The
yes.
Kendrick brothers in production, the movie we just saw last night, Woodlawn, the Irwin brothers,
Yes,
War Room,
right.
God's Not Dead 2. You're right, and it just seems like there are more and more coming out, and there's more coming out down the road even.
It's unbelievable. And we know how good Son of God was and Passion of the Christ. Mark, that changed my life. I never knew. I knew what Jesus' experience was bad, but I never knew it was that bad. And they're saying that wasn't even maybe a tip of the iceberg of what he went. And see, we could never put into movie form all the sins of the world that he took upon him. All of your sins and my sins would have been enough.
Sure.
1 or 2 people. I mean, that would have been enough. But he took the whole world, everybody that's ever lived and ever will. There's no way we could even grasp the pain that he took mentally and physically.
You know, when you think and you see that and you think about it, it makes you tear up. If it just gives me cold chills, and B, it just, you know, I start getting sick of my stomach.
Yes, right.
You know, when you think about the abuse, the beating that he took, that he endured.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness. It's breathtaking.
It is. It is. It really is.
Yeah. My kids, the first time I watched Passion, it was at home, and I think I've told this before, but they were little, but I let them watch it. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I don't regret it.
Yeah.
If our Lord went through that, we all can watch it, and I don't care.
I agree.
But I know parents may disagree with me because it was pretty graphic. But I wanted them, kids are very impressionable, and I wanted them to understand what the Lord went through for you, Lucy, and for you, Blaze. And it was so cute. I don't know if Lucy was 3 or 4, and it just got to the part I was just sobbing uncontrollably. It was horrible.
It was.
And she run to the bathroom and brought the Kleenex box to me, and they patted on me,
Sure.
and they really cared. And you know what? The next time I watched it, same thing. I mean, I just couldn't stand it. And then there's some preview right now, I guess it's Risen, where it shows Jesus on the cross, and then the cross falls down on the ground and bounces. Oh, Mark, I mean, I just cringe every time I see that. Can you imagine being there and witnessing that? Just like throwing him down on the ground like he's just a piece of dirt. It's horrible. But we need to be constantly reminded of what he went through for us. It's just incredible to think about it.
It sure is.
But I'm so happy for the people that spent their money and their time making these movies to put it in a real light for us. Put it in perspective for us. And we've got, oh my goodness, Mark, so many good ones. Remember, Heaven is for Real. Mom's Night Out. There's some such good ones, and you can get these at the movie store now.
And something we need to keep in mind too, Laura, and Pastor John Little, who sees these movies, who's really instrumental about bringing these movies to the area.
Oh.
One thing he says is be sure and pay attention and make sure these are, because there will be a lot of movies that will be placed out there that will mislead you. He says,
right.
Be sure and be careful and watch and become knowledgeable of these movies that are out. That you are viewing what you need to be viewing as far as the life of Christ and how it's biblically written.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to dog on that Noah's Ark, that last Noah's Ark. It was bad. That was wrong. I didn't go see it. My brother went to see it, and a good friend of mine went to see it, and at separate times. They didn't go together, but you know what they both told me? After about 20-some minutes, we just walked out.
Sure. I've talked to a lot of people that did the same thing.
It was absolutely wrong. And so there's some of him. Well, I've never seen Mom's Night Out. I saw it on 700 Club or something advertised somewhere on a Christian station. It seemed to be a nice movie. But yes, we do need to look into these movies, because just like Noah's Ark was just wrong. It was really wrong in my opinion.
Yeah.
Really a bad. I didn't even bother going to see it. But there's so many that we know of, like Woodlawn movie, 90 Minutes in Heaven, and then coming up, Miracles from Heaven. Is that the one where that little girl was sick, but then she fell? She was playing in a tree with her sister, and she fell down in a hollow tree, 30 feet. I saw this on the 700 Club. I haven't seen the movie's not out yet, I don't think, till the 16th or something. But anyway, she is playing in this tree with her sister. She falls back into this rotten tree, 30 feet, hits her head, and it heals her.
Really?
Yes.
I haven't heard. And what was the name of that one again?
I think it's, Miracles from Heaven.
Wow.
And March 18th, that's my dad's birthday. March 18th, it looks like it's coming to the movies. So that is one I definitely want to go see. The story on the 700 Club was so compelling. And the doctor, she says, the mom's looking at the doctor, you mean to tell me that my daughter fell 30 feet and landed on her head, and not only did she not have an injury, she got healed from a life-threatening disease that she already had? And he's like, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then she starts, when she wakes up, she starts telling, yeah, he told me that I'd get well. And she's like, who told you that? And I don't know if it was an angel or if it was a vision of Jesus. I really don't know. But we'll see when we go to the movies. But it's showing you, Mark, the long and the short of this is showing you the sign of our times. Is it not?
And speaking of movies, there's another one coming out too. It's called Priceless, Laura. That's basically how much is a person worth. It's the theme of the movie. And it stars Joel Smallbone for King and Country.
Okay.
And these guys are very passionate about human trafficking, and they're passionate about it because they know how big it is going on today, and they talk about it at a lot of their concerts that they go to, and they talk about how a female is so special in the eyes of the Lord, you know. And so he's in this movie, and they talk about the strength of a female, and when they go to their concerts a lot, they'll pass out a penny on a necklace and stuff, and it will show that that life of a female is more than worth than that penny is. And I'm not sure the exact meaning behind it, but these guys are really good, and they're coming out. Well, Joel's going to be in this movie, and it's due for release later on down the road, and it's supposed to be a very good movie.
Oh, that's
later
wonderful.
On. So,
I'm so glad.
Yeah, and actually, it was filmed, I believe, in New Mexico.
Okay.
And you can go to Price. If we're talking about movie, you can go to pricelessthemovie.com and get information about that.
Okay.
But that's another good one that's supposedly coming out later on in the year.
Wonderful. And you know that needs to be, and that's happening right here in America.
Sure.
And as a matter of fact, a friend of mine just told me that she witnessed to a couple little gals, and they came to her home, and she said something just came over to me. I could tell this kid had a terrible burden, and she said, I asked her, have you ever been molested? And she said, no, but I've been raped.
Oh, my.
And she said, actually, my husband had me in a human trafficking situation. Her husband.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, Mark, that's somebody that's not just in the world somewhere. That's somebody that's living and breathing in southern Illinois, in our own backyard. Her husband was trafficking her out. Can you believe that?
My goodness.
It's unbelievable. But anyway, back to these movies. It shows you so many of the movies are about the apocalypse. They're about the tribulation. They're about so many things that we are faced with right now.
Exactly.
Right now, and it's showing us the time that we're living in, and one of the most powerful forms of communication, especially for Americans, are through the movies. And we need to look up and see where we're at. You think it's just a coincidence that they're all of a sudden coming up with all these powerful movies about the apocalypse and the revelation and the tribulation and the end of days and the rapture now? Wow. I wonder why now. We're almost there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to come back, and we'll be wrapping it up pretty soon, Laura, so we'll come back and talk a little more when we come back here in just a little bit. Welcome back to the Vine Morning Show on a Monday morning. I'm Mark, along with Laura. And, Laura, there was a big event last night down in Arlington, Texas.
Yes.
And you're probably not going to hear about it on mainstream media at all. No, you won't hear about it. But it was called Harvest America 2016, and it was at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys play football.
Okay.
And it was hosted by Pastor Greg Laurie. Of course, he's a big pastor he's a senior pastor of the Harvest Christian Fellowship megachurch out of California.
Yes.
And they had at least 100,000 people gathered in the stadium last night.
Wonderful.
And thousands of people gave their life to Christ last night. He basically told them, Laura, that I know a few things about you. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
Is what he basically told everybody. And, of course, it was live streamed to thousands of host locations across the country. But he also went on to say, you're empty, you're lonely, you feel guilty, and you fear death, he told the gathering. Apparently, according to the Dallas Morning News, this was the largest evangelical outreach in North Texas since Billy Graham drew 255,000 people to Texas Stadium.
Wow.
So this is a big deal.
Absolutely.
And those of you that know Pastor Greg Laurie, know how sincere he is in his walk with Christ.
Yes, absolutely.
And thousands of people came to Christ last night. Goes to show you, Laura, people are wanting more and more and more of God.
Absolutely. And yes, I'm glad that you said that, because Greg Laurie is one that I don't question. There's a few of them out there I'm like, I don't know about you, but Greg Laurie, I think he's spot on. Great guy, and he's not only held this huge event last night, as I was telling you off air, he's motivated other people to have like little cell groups or little church groups to gather together and watch this. And one of my friends, Evelyn, she had a church group. She goes, I had this group coming to our home, and we're going to have the harvest night at our home.
Yeah.
So it was going on around the whole nation, not just in Texas. So.
Well, if you've never seen a Greg Laurie video, just Google him.
Yes.
And his last name is spelled Laurie.
Yes.
And watch his videos out there. And if you're not convinced this guy is a man of Christ,
yes,
and he's sincere about what he says,
yeah,
he is. He's very sincere.
Yeah, I don't worry about him at all. And he had an adult son to get killed, didn't
I
he?
believe he did.
Yes.
I'm not sure on quite on the story on that, but
Yes.
I think you're right on that.
Yeah,
yes.
he was, and I believe this boy was serving with him in the ministry. And I believe his words were, when they told him that his son had gotten killed, I believe maybe it was a car accident, that he said it was like all of the air just was pulled from his body. He said it was an indescribable feeling, which many of our listeners, I'm sure, have lost children, and they understand that pain. Only they could.
Sure.
But let me tell you something. If that wouldn't get you real, if that wouldn't draw you so unbelievably close to God, I don't know what would. And you know what? Often some tragedy will take place like that, because God's getting ready to move you on to some huge deal. You can, per the trial you've gone through will equal what God has for you in the future.
He allows things to happen. He doesn't make things happen.
Right.
But he allows things to happen in your life for that reason,
For
the
that
exact reason.
Right. And it makes me think, and the person that actually spoke on this said it so much better than me, but they said you can almost see what God has for you in the future by what he allows you to go through and what he has allowed in your past.
Sure.
And it makes me, when I hear of this amazing movement for God from Greg Laurie, it makes me reflect back to the few to several years ago when his son got killed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because look what he is on fire. And he has every intention on getting every American on fire as he possibly can.
It's just evident. Look at the crowd they had there last night at
Yes.
AT&T Stadium.
Absolutely.
He's drawn people in, and that's the whole purpose in these end times, is to draw people into Christ.
Absolutely.
And again, you won't hear about this on secular media. You won't hear about it.
No, that's right.
And and that's sad. It really is.
It absolutely is. And another thing that we need to get on fire about, there was a lady in your congregation yesterday that said, I hope this is not inappropriate, but she stood up and she said, Pastor Mac, can we remind all the Christians to vote? Good for you. And I said, amen. And that's another thing that we need to get on fire about. If there's ever in our lifetime, this is the most, in my opinion, critical election of my life.
Sure.
I really believe it. I really do. And remember what Franklin Graham said, 30 million evangelicals stayed at home. Shame on that. Shame on that 4 years ago for the vote. We've got to get out there and vote. Now is the time. We've got to bind together. We've got to put somebody in office that is a God-believing person. So let's remember to do that. And I don't know if she said it was next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yes. Okay. Is that the 15th?
The 15th. It's the 15th.
Yes. That sounds right. So we need to remember and encourage. We can't just lay down as Christians. We've got to, if ever, we've got to have a voice, and a strong voice now. And don't give up that vote. Don't give up that voice and stay home. And what's really impressive to me, Mark, I don't know where your areas are at, but I can go right in and vote. But I watch on TV, some people stand in line for hours to exercise their right. And I asked Tom Greathouse last night, I said, Tom, if you had to stand in a line for hours, would you do it? You know, they're standing in line in all sorts of weather, and you know some of them don't feel good, and their feet hurt, and their back hurts, and whatever, but they standing in line. That's so impressive. I said, would you do that? He said, well, I tell you what, this time I would.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah, this time you better.
I think a lot of people are with
Yes,
Tom on that.
Yes,
really
absolutely.
Do.
So
really do.
exercise your right to vote, people.
Laura, thanks for coming in
Okay.
today. Been a lot of
All
fun
right.
today.
Okay.